Trader Tip-Off Show, and welcome back. Players only, baby. That's right. We're in the house on TNT. Now, Anthony Davis, he may not be in New Orleans much longer. We're going to talk about that in a second. But James Harden, he definitely will be in the house in Houston. And can he get 40 again tonight? 40-piece. That's right. We got New Orleans and Houston next on TNT. What's up, everybody? Welcome back, welcome back. That's right, players only. We're here. We got the same faces and some new additions, but if you don't know the man to my right, then you don't know basketball. That's right, that's the big Shaq, the big everything, cactus, nostril, all that stuff, you know. We got California, LA's finest to be exact, when we talk about Baron Davis. And we finally got some class up on the set.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? And some game. We had to get our girl. I wasn't talking about you, BD.
No, I was saying thank you.
I thought you were saying you was in class.
Sure.
Okay, we both in agreement that
yes.
The great Candace Parker, we welcome you to the set. Thank you for being here with us. We appreciate you. And, you know, let's get right into it. Shaq, you know, your time in Orlando, you were a free agent, or you were coming up for free agency, and you didn't go back to Orlando. You understand sort of what Anthony Davis is going through, not that you asked to be traded. Can you give us a little insight on what you think he's going through, whether you think it was the right move for him to ask to leave, and what do you think he'll go through if he doesn't have the trade for the rest of the season?
Well, we all know basketball, and we all know the people that surround him. He had an agent. He's one of those players like we were, really didn't need an agent. We're going to get the max deal regardless. But you had to know and understand that when he signed with Rich Paul and Clutch Sports, knew this was going to happen. You know, he's the type of player who's made a name for himself. He probably wants to play in a big market, and his agent's best friend plays in one of the biggest markets in LA. So we knew this was going to happen. I thought it was going to be done a little bit more quietly, but you know, he's already mentioned that he's not going to sign that 5 for $240. So he said, "Hey, I want to be traded." So now the ball's in the court of the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah, you can see what
we'll see what happens.
You can see what he's done here, Shaq. 7 years in the league. This year, he's number 2 in scoring. He's top at blocks, and kind of see just his list. And you and I were talking, Candace, before the game, and you had a little different perspective as far as we were just talking about players and asking out. What do you feel of the situation with AD?
Well, I'm all for him saying that he's not going to re-sign with the Pelicans. That's being upfront and being honest. But where it's kind of gray area is asking to be traded in the middle of the season, you know, a week or so before the trade deadline. And I just think from a teammate's perspective, you heard Drew Holiday say, I came here
90%.
for 90%
yeah.
for Anthony Davis. And so just to kind of give that vibe in the middle of the season as a leader of a franchise, that's a tough situation.
And BD, of course I understand Anthony Davis, but if I'm New Orleans, I'm like, we all about to lose. I ain't trading nobody. I'm gonna wait to get what I want. What do you think? How do you think the situation gonna play out? What do you see with the situation?
I think New Orleans needs to think about New Orleans and start to think about their future, right? You know, here you have a guy who, he ain't coming back. You know, let's face the facts, he's not coming back. You don't have enough with him to keep building, so you should blow it up, get the best offer out there, get some draft picks. The Lakers have great players and talent. You got Boston out there. Everybody's throwing their best at you. Look, assess, take the best offer, and let that man go and do what he got to do.
Let me leave this on the table for you guys. Now, we've been in the league a long time around basketball. Anthony Davis got fined $50,000 for his public trade demand. Have y'all ever heard of a player getting fined for saying he wanted to go to another team?
No, I've never heard that.
No, me either. So we did a little research, me and Underdog. Rudy Fernandez, I really don't know who that is.
Play for the Blazers. He played for the Blazers. He played for the Blazers.
Blazers.
I got to
still play?
I see a picture.
Huh?
Does he still play?
I mean, it depends on what he say.
No, he got fined. And then the other was our boy Nate Robinson. Nate, I just called you. Pick up the phone. I was about to ask Nate why he got fined. Now, you're telling me, out of all that we've heard, that these are the 2 names that got fined, y'all?
Tampering. I think the reason why he got fined is the whole, like, you know, he's a superstar in the league. Here they come with the tampering stuff, and so he's just adding fuel to the fire. You know what I mean? So the league, you know, the league.
But being players, I could call you and be like, let's hook up. I mean, if we're players, how can
I'm not saying it's wrong. He should say whatever he wants.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I've never seen nothing like this.
And again, you had to know when he signed with Rich Paul, this was coming.
Yeah.
Everybody knew it was coming.
I agree. The play was totally telegraphed on that side.
From a franchise standpoint, like in terms of trying to attract other free agents, you're going to file an investigation against one of your players?
No, it sounds like New Orleans is not happy with
that's
the situation.
what I mean. It's,
Oh,
it's
the
like
team finding.
Well, the team has to launch an investigation. And then they lost an investigation.
I mean, $50,000 ain't worth it. You know what I mean? They just they need to just go on and make some trades, get some real money.
Okay, but I have a question.
You know.
I have a question.
Yeah.
5-2-40. You can't get that nowhere else.
Oof.
Would you want to go and play somewhere else, or do you want to take that?
See what?
I stayed in Sacramento for much less. I definitely 5 for 240. But the thing is, too, Shaq, the basketball teams, the shoe companies are paying you more than ever now. And so it seems like a lot of players are using that to rely on the fact they can make that up.
Forget making it up. I'm trying to make it when it comes.
Yeah.
And 240 in New Orleans is a lot different than
240
in LA, as we know very well.
A whole lot different. 240 in LA is 120.
So it's pretty much
it might be less than that.
But still, I'd rather have 120 and live in LA.
Oh, you from LA. Oh, get out anyway. Oh, who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Tell him.
Who's going to win the Super Bowl?
The Rams, dog. What you think?
Oh, you're one of those.
This guy, yeah.
Are you on the?
He's like a New Yorker.
Son's favorite team.
Are you on the?
Oh, so now it's your son's favorite team. So you got to root for your son. Anyway, check it out. As we go to break, All-Star Weekend is coming up, and here's a look at the Friday Rising Stars roster. Now, it's presented by Mountain Dew Ice. Now, first we have the World Team, and let me see. I know all those guys on that team. Lauri Markkanen, one of our favorite players. You know what Doncic could do. Aiden, he's from the Bahamas. Ben Simmons, he is from, where's Ben Simmons from? Australia. Yeah, there we go. And, hey, BD, you know my man from Brooklyn's name right there?
Yeah, his name is Rudolph Kukrutz.
Yeah, I had to ask because I didn't know. It's Rodot. Dang, now I just spelled it. I can't even say it. Anyway, let me go to the next one. I can't even read it. I spelled it out myself. The USA, you got De'Aaron Fox. Who you like seeing on this roster, BD?
All of them. De'Aaron Fox, Tatum, Kuz, Trae Young.
I'm going to go with my guy, De'Aaron Fox. Too fast for everybody else.
I'm going to go with Jason Tatum.
Okay.
I got my young boy Bagley. Right. Wow, we smoking.
How about the Kings and the Brooklyn Nets have 2 players for each team, and the Lakers, when you look at Kuzma and Alonzo Ball. We're going to love checking out that game. What's up, Jan Jackson? I played with your pops. He was a hog. Don't you be a hog like him. We'll be back. No, I'm just messing. What's up, Jan? We'll be back with more Players Only in a minute.
James Harden getting him up pregame before he and the Rockets take on the Pelicans. He had 40 in the win over Orlando the other night, which means his January scoring average went down. That's coming up at the top of the hour as the Players Only franchise returns to TNT. Pelicans and Rockets coming up. Grant Hill will be part of that broadcast along with Isaiah Thomas, Jason Terry, and Caron Butler. And as you can see, here he is in the flesh, or at least on TV, joining us from Houston. Grant, there aren't many storylines that can steal the spotlight away from what James Harden has been doing, but this Anthony Davis thing has people talking. What is the ripple effect around the league for you?
Well, Matt, you're right. I mean, James Harden's been great, particularly this last 4 to 6 weeks, but Anthony Davis, the news of his desire to be traded and traded soon from the New Orleans Pelicans is certainly on everyone's mind, particularly here in Houston, as we had a chance to visit with Mike D'Antoni and Alvin Gentry, and just a lot of unknown, a player of his magnitude, the options, what's going to happen moving forward. The Pelicans going to quickly try and do something now prior to the trade deadline, or will they wait until the summer? So just a lot of unknowns right now, but the thing we do know is that obviously he wants out of New Orleans. And the big question is, where will he go? He's the kind of player that can have a huge impact if depending upon where he goes and who he may or may not partner up with. So a lot of excitement, a lot of intrigue. Certainly something on tonight's broadcast I'm sure we'll talk about quite a bit, but certainly the news of the NBA at this moment.
I imagine you will be discussing that a fair amount. The tentacles of this thing are so far-reaching around the league, including the balance of power in whichever conference he lands in. Meanwhile, Harden's numbers in January are just absurd. And now Chris Paul has returned to the lineup. So in your mind, how close are the Rockets to being where they were last season when they wound up winning 65 games?
That's a great question, Matt. They're closer. I think early in the year, obviously, they're a different team. They weren't as talented. Mike D'Antoni was starting rookies, even guys who were undrafted rookies. So different roles. They were struggling. They managed to sort of maintain their confidence and spirit through that stretch. Chris Paul went down, and James Harden went crazy and obviously has played at an MVP caliber rate. But I think bringing in a Kenneth Faried when Capella went down has been huge. He was kind of on that bench there, lost in Denver. You move him now to the center position. He's one of the best at setting screens and rolling to the basket and plays with a tremendous amount of energy. Austin Rivers has come over, a veteran who is a really good on-the-ball defender. Now you're getting Chris Paul back. Capella's coming back. So I think this team is trending in the right direction. Obviously, you have to give a lot of credit to James Harden, but I think the personnel has gotten better since the team that they had at the start of the season. Harden is in obviously tip-top form and is great shape right now and playing elite basketball. And then you're getting Chris Paul back, which I think will help, because the big question is, can Harden continue at this pace throughout the entire season into the postseason? They're going to need Chris Paul to be healthy and productive for them to try to have a run like they had last season.
Grant, Capella played such an important part, especially with Harden on the floor. I mean, this guy was 7th in the league in rebounding, 3rd in field goal percent. All these things that he had done, all-star basically performance by Capella. They lose him and bring in a guy who had almost vanished away from the NBA as far as getting minutes on the floor, getting an opportunity to play. What has Mike D'Antoni said about Faried coming in now and the role he's playing?
Well, Mike D'Antoni, I played for Mike D'Antoni. Dave Griffin, obviously, we were all out there in Phoenix together. He always used to say that the ball finds energy. And there may not be a big guy in the league that has the kind of energy that a Kenneth Faried. I think in Denver, obviously he became the manimal. He played at an elite level, was on the Olympic team at one point, or the U.S. World Championship basketball team. And then Jokic came in, and all of a sudden fours are expected to be able to shoot from the perimeter. That wasn't his game. But it was the perfect timing. There was a void here, Capella being out. He's come in, playing more of the 5 position, setting screens, rolling to the basket, finishing. When Capella was out for that 10-game stretch, they weren't getting baskets at the rim. They were shooting even more three-pointers with a P.J. Tucker at the center position. But Faried now sort of plays that diver role, and he dives so hard that you have to really, defensively guarding Houston, you have to make an adjustment. You have to make the proper read. And so now getting back to that basketball that they're accustomed to playing. And Faried, when Capella comes back, now you have 2 bigs who can come in and play and give you different looks both on offense and on defense. And then, of course, Chris Paul getting back in the mix. So this team, like I said, is moving in the right direction. But Faried has been huge, and certainly Mike D'Antoni has been very happy.
Grant, one of the things I think that gets lost in all of this Anthony Davis talk is exactly how good Drew Holiday's been this season and the burden he's been carrying. He's had to play 9 games without AD as it is, and he's probably been their most consistent player. What does Alvin say about Drew and the season he's had and where they go from here?
Yeah, Dave, we talked about Drew with Alvin. He just said he's been solid, he's been consistent, nothing phases him. He'll come out and be a professional, play at a high level. And you're right, with all the talk this year of Anthony Davis and what's his future, and obviously the news here in the last 48 hours, Drew Holiday is putting up all-star numbers, and 20 points, 8 assists. Obviously would be in the all-star game if New Orleans was in the playoff picture. But quietly under the radar, just going about his business, playing great. And, it's interesting. One of the things we talked about, and certainly Drew Holiday plays a role, we talked about this with Alvin, when they've had all their guys healthy, all the guys that played in their, top 7, 8-man rotation, they've been 7-3 this year. And they just, the injuries and AD being out, Mirotic, at times Randall was out, Peyton was out for 31 games early in the year. This team doesn't have great depth, and not having these guys healthy has really hurt them, and you never really got a chance to see what this team could do after the success of last season in the postseason. So, but Drew Holiday, he has been a mainstay, and he's been someone who, even against Houston, he's guarded James Harden well. The games they played prior, he's, been able to, really keep him off the three-point line, not foul him. make him a two-point shooter. And if you look at the numbers, he's actually done a pretty good job head-to-head, and I imagine we'll get a lot of that tonight.
Injuries a factor again tonight for the Pelicans. Julius Randle is out. Etuan Moore is going to rest tonight. Elfrid Payton also out with the ankle injury, in addition, of course, to Anthony Davis. Grant Hill, though, fit as a fiddle and ready to broadcast at the top of the hour. Players only tonight. It's the Pelicans and the Rockets. We'll see you then.
All right, guys, thank you.
Much more coming up here on Game Time between now and the start of that game. The Anthony Davis story is of some interest to the folks in Los Angeles. We'll get the perspective from out there when we come back. Gentry the Pelicans have to deal with. Oh, yeah. There's James Harden, who's averaged 44 in the month of January, and regardless of what he does tonight, will become the fourth player in NBA history to average 40 points for a calendar month. A remarkable thing. Even more remarkable than Wilt did it 11 times. Kobe actually did that 4 times. I did not realize that.
No, that's a remarkable number, especially in today's league, the way the game is played. To have him be in a position to do this with all of the great stars we have, and so many guys have never done this, really speaks to a lot of different things. But I think it's the perfect blend of the right coach, the right front office, and the right star.
And you have to remember, he's doing this. Wilt did not bring the ball down the floor, did not dribble into the low post area, and then did not dunk it on top of people. Somebody was passing him the ball. James does this all basically on his own. It's not him coming off a screen, somebody hits him, he catches and shoots it. He doesn't operate that way. So what, 95, 98% of the time, it's James by himself during this month making things happen for himself.
Virtually all unassisted baskets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Coach, you know, I just learned Wilt Chamberlain was underutilized. He should have been given the ball and said, just
should have
go.
been taking it up. He did just about everything else. So Harden will try to extend his 30-point scoring streak to 24. He'll also try to extend his streak of being the leading scorer among all scorers in the game he's playing to 24, which is another remarkable team because that affects the other team.
Well, it might actually get more difficult in a weird sort of way because he has more talent with him now. One of the things that really sort of propelled him on this streak was the fact that there's nobody else to demand the ball. And what's fascinating is it played right into the sort of mad science experiment that they've had, which is if we can control every single possession and control outcome possession by possession, we can overcome the fact that we may not be deep enough on the defensive side of the ball. Chris Paul coming back means he may have less touches and maybe they're less efficient offensively, which in a weird way puts more pressure on their defense.
By the way, Harden's next 50-point game will move him up the all-time list of career 50-point games. He'll pass Rick Barry for 5th all-time if he gets number 15 or when he gets number 15. It's going to happen sooner or later. Again, Wilt skews the graphic with 118 career 50-point games. You do that when you average 50 for an entire season. That tends to mess things up. Over under tonight against the Pelicans, the shorthanded Pelicans, for points for James Harden, we're going to put it at 45.
I'm under. I think that Alvin Gentry is not afraid to try something different. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Alvin say, we're going to trap him every time he comes or goes this way or that way, or send the guy at him to get the ball out of his hands. Try something a little bit different. He would do that.
Okay.
So I was adamantly to the under when I first was posed this question here as we were talking offset. I have to be honest with you. I think I've come around to the idea that simply because you and I are working, it has to be a given that he gets 50 points. So I'm going to take the over.
That is a sound strategy. I can't argue with that kind of logic. I'm going to go under as well. Chris Paul's out there. He's going to take some of the possessions away from him. And frankly, the Pelicans aren't playing very well right now. Defensively, they've been really bad all season. Harden might not need to play a ton in the fourth quarter. We'll see how that plays out later on tonight. Much more coming up here on Game Time here for a Tuesday night. It's a players-only Tuesday night on TNT. Drew Holiday getting set to go in Houston tonight in the middle of what could be maybe his best season as a pro. He's had some really good ones, former All-Star in the Eastern Conference as well. Hasn't shown up in the win column, and the Pelicans are in danger of falling out of relevance in the West. Here's Holiday with Caron Butler ahead of a players-only Tuesday night.
Here with Drew Holiday, can you just talk to me about your mindset coming in here playing the Rockets today?
Right, really good team. We've all seen what James has been doing. do our best to try to corral him and stop him from scoring 40 points, run him off the three-point line. That's what they love to do, and also keep James off the free throw line.
Yeah. So I guess you're going to get the first crack at him, or obviously a crack at him. So how would you slow him down, being one of the best two-way guys in the game?
Honestly, just try to keep him guessing. Sometimes play him up close, make him drive. Sometimes play off of him. Try to be handsy, but in a way that it doesn't cause fouls, and really rely on my teammates. Drive down there into the big to be able to block or make him pass it out for a three, and from there we're going to have to rotate.
I know this is one of the tough times for the organization right now with AD news coming out. You know, you said that based upon him and his future, 90% of the reason you was here because of him. Can you just speak on that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, he's top 3 in the world. His athletic ability, what he can do as an athlete, as a player, even a friend. I've been with him for 6 years, so I feel like for me, coming around a talent of that caliber was kind of once in a lifetime, and we had a good thing going. So, but on that note, man, Anthony's doing everything he's doing best for himself, and I'm not mad at that. He's the ultimate professional. He still comes here and works, and still cheers for his team. So I'm happy for him.
Last question: does that change anything with your future going forward?
As of right now, no. I'm here to play basketball. Today, specifically, I'm here to try to beat the Houston Rockets. So go out there, give it my all, and try to exhaust myself and play as hard as I can.
Hey, good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, bro. Thank you, guys.
Interesting thoughts from Drew Holiday there, and got to deal with that guy tonight. James Harden and the Rockets. Chris Paul back in the lineup. They've won 3 in a row and 4 of their last 5 as they get set to go against the Pels. Chris Paul played 25 minutes the other night after returning from that hamstring injury. 12 points, 5 boards, 6 assists on 4 of 8 shooting. He is back tonight as the Rockets take on the Pelicans. Here's Mike D'Antoni on his point guard and his second game back.
Well, I think we have to do it that way. I don't think Chris enjoys that. He'd rather stay in and play, but we need to be cautious here next couple weeks, and then he'll eventually get back up to 30, 31, where we'd like to keep him.
Have you ever dealt with something like they've got going where it's out there, what the limbo that they seem to be in now?
No, not really. No, it's kind of odd.
How tough of a thing is that to keep the focus?
That's tough. You know, you'd have to be inside the locker room, and I can't. This never happened to me, and I'm not over there, so I will have no clue.
Even just the game or two before a trade deadline can be somewhat tense.
Well, most players get a little nervous about them, but you know, it happens to everybody in the sense of everybody knows that it's a business, and that's part of the deal. But you got to keep focused and get through it. And I'm sure there's a lot of players like to get to the other side of the deadline so that they can stay at home, but that's just part of business.
When you think about what you guys have done, in a sense, adding Austin Rivers, adding Kenneth Faried, kind of making deadline deals in the middle of the season, have really worked out, have they not?
Oh, it's really worked out, and especially with all the injuries that both those guys have saved us and got us into a position where we are now. We've added them to a pretty good team, so as soon as we get everybody back, you know, we'll see what we got, but it looks promising for sure.
Do you guys, is it too early to get progress updates on Clint, how he's doing and everything?
He's laying in the sun, I'm sure. He's just out there in California somewhere. It's something he has to heal. He'll be ready to go when it's time.